Wow. I still remember when
I remember all my friends.
Remember when we didn't have area code?
Yeah.
And you're just 7 digits.
Yeah. A lot.
I wonder who has my number. 9680263. Give it a whirl.
I'm not shouting out my parents' phone number.
No one lives there anymore. At least nobody I know. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA strategy show. We're back again 5 days a week, you and me today, Josh. Good stuff, man.
It's a good time, man. It's a good time. Yesterday didn't break the way that I was hoping that it would break, but we did get some fun basketball, at least in the first game.
We will get into all of that for sure. I'm Dave Loughran on the Twitters at Laffy_D. Hit me up, LOUGHY_D, and Josh Engleman at Josh Engleman over there as well. Follow Awesemo at Awesemo_com. So we've got one game to touch on today. Hopefully this show doesn't go as long, but I say that every time. Well, I say we play it by ear.
I mean, I assume we go to like 11-10.
Nah, we'll be all right. We're going to talk about it. We've got Luka going up against Kawhi and Paul George. And I've got to tell you, man, like yesterday I crushed the prop game. Hopefully you guys check out the deeper dive and for all of the great DFS content from Adam shared, but also some of these props, use an odd shopper for them as well to shop around and find the best ones. There was some good value out there. Monte Morris, over 4.5 assists. Josh, you hit that in the first half. That's always a great feeling.
He smashed.
Yeah. Nikola Jokic, he played really great. Nikola Jokic, under 6.5 assists. Boom. Lakers, son. Bro, I had some crazy bets yesterday. First of all, I had Nurkic over 13.5 points. He had 13. That sucked, right? Like that just, he was getting to the basket. But I had Lakers Suns under 51 first quarter points. Now, I know you wanted to stay up for a little bit. I don't know if you did for the first quarter, right?
I saw the tip off.
Okay. If you were to tell me that I almost lost a bet where the Lakers scored 14 points in the first quarter, lost an under bet on 51, I would call you crazy. If you would have told me that I won an under bet on 51 in the first quarter when the Suns scored 36, I would have called you crazy. I mean, think about that. 36-14. Should have gone over, should have gone under, depending on the way you look at it. But just what a wild game. LeBron James couldn't get it done. There's no reason Anthony Davis should have ever been cleared to play in that game.
No, that one's bad. 5 minutes, -7 in those 5 minutes, and just dunzo. Not good. Not good at all.
Not at all. Also crushing triple diamonds last night, man. Just absolutely annihilating the triple diamond slots.
Dude, so I mean, I don't know. By the way, stop playing those, man. I've tried to put them out of my head. I got to not talk to Ben so much so I don't play slots.
I haven't played in 4 months, and you'd be proud of. Listen, you'd be proud of me. I dabbled a little bit because I'm feeding. This is how big of a degenerate I am. If my wife was watching this show, she'd kill me. I'm feeding Jordan while rewatching True Detective season 1 and playing triple diamonds. So
you're making 2 mistakes at the same time.
Stop it. But it's first time I played in 4 months, and I hit a big one, right? Like I hit a real big one, and didn't say, okay, well now if I just get down to here, I'll stop. Cause you know, that's how it goes, right? You're like,
oh yeah, 100%. All right. My new stop is $300. I hit 500. Yep. I'm not going anywhere lower than 300 today.
Exactly. So I have my mark usually. This time though, I said, you know what? I'm stopping. And then I did a few more spins and had a couple really big wins. And then I actually stopped. So I'm not playing today, but they're hard to stay away from, man. You want to talk about at your fingertips, addiction style. It's not DFS. It's not sports betting, right? It's not like some people, of course, but they'd have addictions to anything. I'm one of them. But the online casinos, my God.
Have you played ever on the shitter?
Yeah, I've probably played everywhere.
Yeah, that's where it got it. Like normally my morning is wake up, check the scores, check my lineups. I go into the bathroom for like 10 minutes, hang out. Yeah. There were a couple of mornings where at like 5:20 a.m. I'm pulling up Gold Rush gusts, and it's like, this feels like a problem.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's not good.
Not good.
It's not good. I did. Nah, I shouldn't talk about that. I'll be called reckless. But maybe afterwards we could talk. Listen. Yesterday was crazy. Yeah. Overall, it was a good night. Broke even in DFS and had a good day betting. Had a good day on the slots. I'm done with them, though. You're right. I'm done with them. But
luckily, I don't produce the PGA golf show on Tuesdays anymore because Ben was costing me $100 a week.
Yeah. Yeah, Ben got deep into what was it? The
Buffaloes. We went on a buffalo run. Gorillas went on a run for a little bit. And then every once in a while, he'd be like, yo, we got this new one. And I'm just like, well, okay. And he's like, Lawless Ladies. That's the new one now on there. And it's just like, okay.
See, but he has to play on like Bovada.
Yeah, that's where I'm playing.
Yeah, I could play on DraftKings, right? Like that's problematic.
Not ideal. I mean, it's all problematic for me.
Yeah,
I might play right now while we do this show.
What's that?
I might play right now while we do this show, which I've done.
Do a spin. If you were producing, I'd say do a spin and we'll screen share it. But
thank God I'm not.
It's not worth it. Look, yesterday was insane. Not Luka Doncic, but the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker routed the Lakers. And I'm going to ask you a question. And I know you're going to give me an answer. I'm pretty certain of where you're going to go here. It's not a question. And by the way, Devin Booker outscored the Lakers by 8 in the first quarter. Devin Booker outscored the Lakers by 8. He finished with 47 on the day. Does this series from the Lakers do anything? Does this make you look at LeBron James differently going forward? Not in terms of like, oh, it tarnishes his legacy. I'm not saying that. You can't expect him to go to the finals every year, right? But and Phoenix is a very good basketball team. But do you look at LeBron James now and say, listen, he's still very good. He is still elite, but we're starting to see him enter he was at the precipice and now we're starting to come downhill.
I think that if we looked at him as the best player in the world last year, I think he falls to like 5th. But he played 41 minutes yesterday, went 29, 9 and 7, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and was -3 in 41 minutes. Like,
a good stat line. I'm not saying that.
Look, Anthony Davis played 5 minutes. That is going to be a problem for every single team in the league. You take off Paul George from the Clippers, they're not going to be nearly as good. You take off insert star here, number 2 from every one of these teams. It's a real problem, particularly when this isn't reversed. It's not the 2-seeded Lakers going up against the 7-seeded Suns. It's the opposite. The Suns are 51-21 this year. We're really good. Like, you can't afford to not have Anthony Davis in multiple spots. It's going to be a problem. Doesn't change anything to me for LeBron. He's obviously going to get progressively worse as we go. He's 36 years old. I don't look at it as some indictment more often than not. And I would say like 99.9% of the time, everybody that gets to 36 years old is not as good as he is right now.
Yeah. It's well said. And I think LeBron, by the way, I wasn't goading you into any answer there. Because I'm not sure there is a right answer, but let me ask you this, and I'm with you. The Phoenix Suns are a very good basketball team. Like I made jokes on Twitter about like, imagine being the 2 seed fighting all season long and having to face the Lakers. That still stands because if it's LeBron and AD, you're the Suns. You don't want to face the Lakers but they're a very good basketball team and they prove that all year long. And Chris Paul, I'm convinced, is still not at 100%. I'm convinced that Chris Paul's still not back to 100%. But if this were 5 years ago, same situation, Davis goes down, right? And you have LeBron, same scenario elsewhere, right? The only other factor is LeBron James is 5 years younger. Do they win this series or do they win yesterday's game?
They have a much better chance of doing it. That's for sure. I mean, he's just a better player 5 years ago than he is right now. Okay. But that's also not shocking.
No. I'm not saying it is shocking. I'm just curious to know where you stand on the evolution of LeBron James,
Like, obviously he's part GM to this team. So like he bears some of this burden, but when AD goes down, the LeBron James, Dennis Schroeder, Marc Gasol at 40 years old or however the hell old Marc Gasol is show isn't going to sell as many tickets as the LeBron James AD show. It's just not.
The Lakers roster sucks though. Like you could make the argument, right? Okay, first of all, Dennis Schroeder has been awful.
Yeah.
Andre Drummond, is that really the guy you wanted to bring on to bolster your front court?
Yeah, he was a buyout guy, man. You're acting like they brought him in for $20 million a year.
No,
yes, Andre Drummond is the guy you want to bring in for no money whatsoever. Yes,
I'm acting like he was their starter in the playoffs.
Sure. Yeah, I would want Andre Drummond at that contract.
You would want him as your starter?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. KCP is a fine player, but like Kyle Kuzma, the problem with this team, Josh, is when one of their big dogs goes down, they have nobody else that can consistently step up.
I don't think that's a minority for the Lakers, though.
Really?
No.
Okay. When Chris Paul went down, Cameron Payne stepped up in a huge way.
Okay. Are we really going to do this?
I don't want anyone to supplant Anthony Davis or LeBron James. I'm not suggesting that at all. Okay. What I'm suggesting is that it just completely falls apart. So would you rather have like, you know what? Maybe let me put it this way. The Lakers are a fragile team. And I don't mean like, oh, Anthony Davis has fragile legs. I mean, the foundation that team was built upon was so fragile that one injury could topple the whole whatever's built on top of it. That's a fair way to put it, right?
Yeah, for sure. But again, I don't think that's unique to the Lakers. If Paul George gets hurt, nobody's really clamoring to see this team turn into the Kawhi plus Luke Kennard show. You know, when you're paying two stars the maximum amount of money that you can, you have limited resources elsewhere to fill out the rest of your roster. It's going to take a long-term build where you brought in guys from the draft and you got lucky in a couple spots. Doesn't always work like that. You're putting all of your eggs into Anthony Davis and LeBron James basket. And that was the right basket last year.
Sure. Listen,
you can only do so much.
Mike Campbell says, Laffy, if the roster was so bad, why did the fakers, he calls them, your buddy, why did the Lakers open minus 300 for the series? Because they had LeBron and Anthony Davis. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. Anyway.
Oddly enough, Anthony Davis didn't hurt his groin before the series started.
Yeah. Right.
Like we can't act like this team didn't win the title less than a year ago and were the arguable favorites to do it again, barring health. I don't think that it's some like sad case or sad story that you lose to the Suns. The Suns are good. They're a
great team. And a great, about to get to the showdown slate today. A great series was Denver and Portland. Damian Lillard's a loyal guy, but it's time to bounce, bro.
I got one quick question for you about the Suns. Do you think we look back at this game differently, call it 2 years from now, and think like, oh, that was just the start of the Suns? Devin Booker, young. Bridges, young. Cam Johnson, young. DeAndre Ayton, young. Are we going to look at this in the future a little bit differently? Like, oh, the Lakers might have lost that series, but they ran into one of the new West powerhouses.
Definitely not.
Okay.
I don't see it. Like, I don't think I have trouble believing that Cam Johnson is going to be a difference maker.
But he could be like the Duncan Robinson, whatever the hell on the team.
Sure.
I'm not saying
Miami
he's some
got
different
swept
player
in the first round. Look,
you got Devin Booker. That's a legit building block. And I think DeAndre Ayton has changed a lot of minds so far in this series.
Devin Booker's fantastic, man. He's fantastic. But he has never contributed to a winning team until this season. And he's in his 6th year. I'm sorry. He's in his 6th year. They've never been good just because of Devin Booker or anyone else that's been placed around him. What happens when Chris Paul is no longer there? Like, I look at Chris Paul as a massive impact player here. I think Jay Crowder is low key a very high impact player. So the way I see it is, Ayton's a good player. Booker's a stud. But I think the glue that holds this team together, and I could probably make a good argument based on previous seasons where you had Devin Booker out there, is guys like Chris Paul and guys like Jay Crowder. And for how long they stick around, I couldn't tell you.
Does Chris Paul, let's say that, like, I don't disagree with you that Chris Paul is a huge part of this. Chris Paul certainly pulling up Phoenix into a different level.
Absolutely. And we saw it this season. Without Chris Paul, this team is not the 2 seed. There's no way.
No. Does that open up Phoenix to replace Chris Paul in the future with a new Chris Paul? Are they now a destination?
I think it depends on what happens this season.
Okay. Man,
I think it depends on what happens.
In hindsight, boy, oh boy, did they whiff on that Jalen Smith pick. Holy shit. On
which one? I'm sorry.
Jalen Smith.
Yeah. Oh, God. Can you imagine what would have been this team? This team, I don't want to say they'd be a favorite because it would still be the Nets. They are, if they don't make that pick, they're a favorite to win the West.
Yeah. You turn that into Halliburton. You turn that into even just Cole Anthony, Isaiah Stewart, Sadiq Bey. These are some of the guys that went after them.
Yep. Maybe I'm overreacting that they'd be a favorite to win the West, but that right there is the difference between a guy that doesn't play and a player that could have a considerable impact, probably off the bench. And now you've got a much more bolstered bench and an even better team.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's man, that one's tricky.
Yep, it was. Anyway, this is always fun to talk about because once you get into the playoffs, you start to see so many crazy things happen. And I'll let you say your piece. The one thing I'll say on Denver and Portland was after the first quarter, Michael Porter Jr. had 22 points. Jokic had 0. After the fourth, or from the second through the fourth quarter. So after the first quarter, Jokic had 36 and Michael Porter had 26. So 36 and 4. Michael Porter is a good young player, but he had 4 points in the final 3 quarters. Jokic had 36 in 3 quarters. He's an absolute animal. I had Denver winning this series because of Nikola Jokic. Granted, let's give credit to Austin Rivers knocking down clutch threes late in the game again. Monty Morris having a great game. Porter having that big first quarter. But like this Denver team, I don't see them going to the finals. They're scrappy. They fight. And Nikola Jokic is an outright stud who can carry a team on his back. And he never has bad games in the playoffs.
Can you imagine turning Austin Rivers 40 minutes into Jamal Murray?
This would have been, if that's the case, this would have been a 5-game series for sure.
I hate this for Denver.
Yeah.
I think they're good. I think Jamal Murray's game is perfectly suited for the playoffs. And it is a shame that the two of those guys don't get to take a shot this year.
It's really sad. And you know what I would have loved to have seen? I would have loved to have seen Nuggets Clippers. Because remember last year, Jamal Murray had that game where he slaughtered them. I mentioned it on the show before. He had more points combined than Paul George, than Kawhi Leonard, than Marcus Morris, and I think it was, I don't know, Reggie Jackson was even whoever it was last year, right? Yeah. More points than all of them combined in one game, Josh, in an elimination game. They got humiliated. I think that series would have been top of the line entertainment.
I pray that Jokic can stay healthy because the things that he can do on the floor right now at his size, it's stuff we've never seen before.
He hasn't missed a damn game all year long.
It's incredible. It really is. So here's the next question for you then, since we're talking about this game. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, Terry Stotts. How many of those people are in Portland for the start of next season?
Okay. Let us know, chat, how many of them are going to be in Portland next year as well. Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, Terry Stotts.
Yep.
Okay. So don't give all. So just give us a number, 1 through 4 or 0. Stotts is gone.
Yep.
I like Terry Stotts as a person too, but I mean, I think he's ran that tab up pretty high without paying it yet.
It's so crazy that we look at that like, man, Terry Stotts has got to go. He's like the 8th best guy at his job in the world.
I'm saying though, I think Terry Stotts is a good coach, but what it is a change. The same thing happened with Andy Reid in Philadelphia, right? Where Andy Reid's a phenomenal coach. Okay. But it got to a point where he'd been there for 13 years. They kept getting close. They didn't get it done. There comes a time where just a fan base, you need to change the scenery, whether it's the right move or not. Those things happen. You know this.
Dwayne Casey.
Dwayne Casey's a great example. So when it comes to Terry Stotts, I think this is one of those things where like, listen, Terry, it probably isn't your fault. you're a good coach. And I think he is a good coach. I really do. But we got to do something different here. It just has to happen. So I think Terry Stotts is gone for that reason. Lillard's on a huge contract, but there's a lot of teams that would take that, right?
Oh my God. There would be a line out the door.
Right. You just know more about contracts than I do. So
his contract is not an impediment. Everyone would take it right now.
I think after this, it's really hard to say, but your move might be to blow this whole team up.
I don't know. I don't think Dame can go anywhere. I think he wants to be there, and I think Portland wants him to be there. And I think you need to change it up around him, which generally speaking leads to it being CJ McCollum. That's the guy that has to go out the door. I think that's like the most popular sort of answer. The question becomes, what do you get for CJ McCollum and who would want him?
I think a lot of teams would want CJ McCollum. They set themselves back with the Evan Turner signing a while ago. Who was the center that they signed to big money? That
Myers Leonard.
And then they just put themselves in a hole. Can they bring somebody on? Can they bring in a high dollar player?
No. They have no mechanism to do that without removing someone from the team.
Okay, so they're in trouble, and I don't know who wants to go to Portland at this point anyway.
CJ's on a 3-year, $100 million extension right now. Kicks in for this next season. I don't think that you could trade CJ McCollum for value.
You're probably right. So they're in purgatory.
I'm looking right now at potential trades. Like I'm on Trade NBA. Someone on here has CJ McCollum and Derek Jones Jr. to the Kings for Buddy Hield and Harrison Barnes.
I
get it.
Yeah, it's okay.
I get it. It's not a trade that's going to make Portland be a different team. I don't know where CJ McCollum could go. That's the thing. I don't know where he would go.
I don't either. Let's talk about tonight's game. We're in it now. I think I forgot to mention it, but hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. I know it's a 1-game slate, but let's keep tradition alive here. First thing you do, if you haven't yet, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to do that because that's more important than anything else here. And hey, if you want to join as a member on the YouTubes, Team Awesemo, get the badges, get the avatars, and some other stuff. Like I said, next week we should be rolling out some cool stuff, especially for you guys that have been here longer, and really anybody that signs up. Get priority on questions. Hit that little join button down there as well. Josh, we dive into it, but first, let's say what's up to our sponsor, No House Advantage. You and I have said this many times. Everybody watching probably already knows this, but you want to go to a place where you can win, where you can build your bankroll. This is the place to do it. A peer-to-peer player prop platform. You can use very similar research that you use for DFS in order to make good plays. You're putting them in a tournament-style format, just like you would at Draftkings or Fanduel, but without salaries. You're using player props, putting your highest confidence guys that you like the most up top, the ones you like the least at the bottom, building a lineup out that way. And the best part, outside of the fact that if you use the promo code Awesemo, you get $20 when you sign up. Definitely do that. Use it, AWESEMO, when you sign up. Get $20 upon your first deposit because free money is free money no matter how you cut it. But the best part in terms of like sustainable long-term success, very simple, Josh. It is use the free player prop tool that we have at Awesemo.com. Use the free optimal lineups tool that we have at Awesemo.com. Free every single day of the week, and build good lineups and a place where lines go stale, where they don't change throughout the day, and you can catch a serious edge each and every night.
It's the spot to try to build up your bankroll right now, in my opinion, given the tools that we have to offer, given the instant match deposit bonus if you're starting out there, given the potential overlay in each contest. If I'm looking to just start getting into DFS, or if I'm looking to try a different site, if it hasn't been going all that great elsewhere, to me, it's a no-brainer to start here, given what we've got to offer.
Absolutely. No House Advantage. Go download the app, check it out online, and use the promo code Awesemo to get your $20 when you deposit. And of course, use those free tools. Clippers, Dallas Mavericks. The LA Clippers here, 3-point favorites, 216.5 total. I can't even bet the Clippers right now because I have no idea. Like, they should have won this series, given how Luka's been forced to do everything. And I took the L willingly, openly, and almost appreciatively because of how good Luka Doncic was. I'm okay being made to look bad when Luka does stuff like that, Josh. But now the Clippers come in an elimination game. An elimination game against a team that has Luka and pretty much nobody else offensively. Kristaps Porzingis has been bad. Hardaway's been fine. I know they knocked down all of their threes in the first couple of games, but they've come back down to earth. Where do we go with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George today coming in? Of course, you have the captain spot, and then FanDuel's format is a little bit different. So let's just quickly talk roster construction, what you do with these highest price guys.
Yeah, so on the Clippers side, at least from a DraftKings perspective, I think they're basically properly owned at the captain spot. We've got Kawhi at 14. We've got Paul George at 13. And that's essentially exactly where I have them. I have them both at 15. So to me, that is working as intended. If we move those guys to the flex spot, though, you can get a little bit more Kawhi. I think he is slightly underowned at 49%. And I think Paul George is slightly overowned at 48%. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'm a little bit more pessimistic on Paul George. And I'm a little bit more interested in Kawhi Leonard, just given the makeup of the salaries. Kawhi is $800 more expensive than Paul George right now.
All right.
FanDuel's a different story.
Yeah. What about on FanDuel? And how do you go about separating DraftKings with the captain spot from FanDuel, where it's, MVP, star, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so raw points matter a lot more on FanDuel. You need the best scorers. That's just how it works. And it's going to be very hard for the best plays to end up in the utility spot. Like, we are projecting Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to be in the utility on FanDuel 12% of the time each. I wouldn't play those guys in those spots at all. I think that they should solely be an MVP, star, and pro. In particular, I think that both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are going pretty significantly underrepresented in the star spot. I think their ownership right now in MVP is about right. I don't, you're going to get to those guys by default. But at star, we have Kawhi Leonard projected for 20% ownership. We've got Paul George projected for 14. I have those numbers in the 30s for both of those guys. The chance that Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and on the opposite side, Luka Doncic are the highest scorers in this game. They're on a completely different planet. I've got Luka projected for in the mid-50s. Kawhi and Paul George are somewhere in the mid-40s. Kawhi a little bit higher than George. Everybody else is in like the 20s. It's going to take a massive, massive game from someone else to usurp one of those guys out of the top three spots. Again, it's raw points. Whoever the highest scorer is on the day is the best possible MVP you could have. Whoever is second is the best possible star you can have. There's no adjustment for salary like there is for the captain spot. So when there's no adjustment for salary, it's just a linear ranking of who the highest scorer is, second, third, whatever, because that's how the pieces fit together.
You're right.
You don't want to miss that.
You're right. Like if you're putting someone in the captain spot on DraftKings, he doesn't always at all necessarily have to be the highest scoring player.
Nope.
Right? Like, obviously, you want him to be one of the highest scoring players in a showdown slate.
Yeah.
But on FanDuel, just to kind of recap what you're saying, because it's super important, you want him to be the highest scoring player. You need, you're right. 1, 2, 3 in that is exactly how they want them to finish on the day. Whereas on DraftKings, you could have a guy that finishes with 40 actual DraftKings points, but he's way cheaper than the highest priced player who you plug in at 1.5 times his salary, and that guy has 50, and you throw in that guy in that's way cheaper that gets 40, whatever it is, multiple. So 60 is a huge advantage because of what you're getting underneath that. So that's a great way to look at it. And from a strategy standpoint, it could not be any more different.
Yeah, it's for me, it's they are two dramatically different game types, and I prefer DraftKings quite a bit.
It's also funny is on Yahoo, they have Megastar, Superstar, and Star. But the top one is Megastar. It always makes me laugh, man.
And they probably roundtabled that stuff for days.
Yeah, I don't know. Megastar. But they have a big contest today, $15,000.
Make it gold, silver, and bronze or something. Good God. Like, how hard is this?
Right. Platinum player, gold player. Just diamond player. Or diamond, platinum, gold. There's a million.
Megastar isn't a word.
I know.
It's a made-up thing, man.
It's funny, dude. It's funny. So in the captain spot, who right now are, if we're looking at just optimal lineup percentage, who are your best captain spot options? And did you do a contenders today for Showdown?
Certainly did, man. When you're good, you're good.
Go ahead.
Luka Doncic, surprise, surprise, the best option at the captain spot today. I've got him showing up there 40% of the time. We only have his ownership at 24. So spoiler alert, Luka in the captain spot is my favorite thing. And then I think he's getting over-owned in the flex spot. This is usually the story for the pay-up option. So lock and load your Luka captain lineups, but obviously they're going to get duped a little bit. Type of contest that you're in matters a lot. Only Luka, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George are in double digits in terms of being the optimal captain. But the next two guys after the three studs are Kristaps Porzingis at $9K and $2,400 Boban Marjanovic.
Dude, people laughed because, and I get it, right? Because Ty Lue suggested that Boban was going to start, right?
Yeah.
Mind you, Ty Lue is the coach of the Clippers. Rick Carlisle is the coach of the Mavericks. So, a strange source to get your information from. But he ended up being right. And Boban Marjanovic is, number one, an absolute gift to the game of basketball.
For sure.
Number two, if Boban starts again, I mean, he has to, right?
I mean, it would really surprise me if he didn't.
Because they won in LA. Why fix something that ain't broken? Unless, of course, the Clippers make some serious adjustments to their.
Well, here's the question. When you say don't fix it because it's not broken, you're saying that because Dallas won game 5. Boban Marjanovic was -9 in 20 minutes. So while it certainly worked out in the grand scheme of things, it certainly didn't work out while Boban was on the floor.
But I try and take a layman's approach to this. And sometimes people just look at the results in terms of wins and losses. Yeah. And it's wrong. You're right. It's wrong. But all I'm saying is I don't know if Boban being -9 in a win is enough to take him off. Like I think Rick Carlisle's a smart guy. Don't get me wrong, but I still think Boban starts this game.
You want? By the way, don't be surprised if Rick Carlisle is the coach of the Celtics next year.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Don't be surprised if Rick Carlisle isn't the coach of the Dallas Mavericks next year. We'll see what happens, especially if they lose this series.
Okay.
But
he's
Boban,
been there for 100 years.
I know. Might be the Andy Reid, Dwayne Casey sitch, you know?
Do you like value for – we're going to have to look somewhere, right? And this is really what it all boils down to. This is where it starts to get ugly when we're making these lineups. And it seems like DraftKings pricing is relatively sharp, at least good enough on a slate like this. Are there any really cheap Clippers players that pose some value to us?
Yeah. So, I mean, all right. Well, if we're saying Clippers, I do want to mention, like, I think Boban is getting the proper captain ownership. I think he's underrepresented at 4,500 at the flex. If we know that he is starting, you should have 75% Boban on DraftKings today. That's the unquestioned value play. Otherwise, you're trying to get lucky with like Dwight Powell or Trey Burke or something stupid. Trey Burke didn't play last time.
Do you think you could legitimately win with Boban in the captain spot?
I think you could win 5% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that is a Josh answer. I mean, it's the right answer, but
yeah. I would look, if I were playing a 20 max, I'd have him in one of them.
Okay. Yeah, Boban could go for 40 in 20 minutes, and then it just everything shatters at that point.
Yeah. In terms of value for the Clippers, though, Batum at 5K is sort of the best value option that I'm seeing. I think he's going a little bit over-owned at captain, a little bit underrepresented at flex. I think he makes for some nice salary savings. Similar story for Zubac at 4K, particularly if Boban is getting run out there. I think that kind of slightly solidifies Ivica Zubac's minutes. I gave him 20 today. We have him projected for 30% ownership in the flex. I have him at 37. So he would be a guy that I'm finding a little bit of value in. The guy that I'm avoiding is chat favorite Rajon Rondo, 5,400 on DK, projected for 22% ownership at the flex spot. That is not a direction I want to go. He was absolutely awful in game 5. We'll see if that wakes him up for game 6.
I'm not sure it will. I guess the one I wanted to ask you about before we talk about Dallas, you touched on him a little bit, but Reggie Jackson attempted 16 shots last game. I mean, there was one point in the third quarter, late in the third quarter, where he led the team in field goal attempts ahead of Kawhi and Paul George. Is Reggie Jackson a good utility option today? Is he something I just can't see myself putting him in the captain spot situations. The ceiling there just seems remarkably low, but is he someone that you could slot into the utility and think, all right, you give me 30 or so and I should be okay?
I think he's one of the worst plays on DraftKings for today. Okay. 6,200. We've got him at 5% captain ownership. I have him at 1.5. To me, he's one of the worst captain options that you could get to today. We've got him at 30% in the flex. I've got him at 21. Again, I think that he is going pretty massively overowned, and it's because of his price. But his price isn't nearly as ridiculous as it is on FanDuel, where he's 11,500. Showed up in the optimal only 8% of the time in total. We have him projected for 14% ownership, which I already think is too high. Reggie Jackson, to me, whether it's FanDuel or DraftKings, is one of the worst plays you can have today.
All right, simple enough. The Dallas Mavericks. You've got an elimination game here. Mavericks can pull it off. It's going to be tough. I still think this goes to 7, and I think we're going to really enjoy this series. But they could pull it off. If they do, Luka Doncic is going to need another huge game. He's probable for tonight's game, coming off a 42.14 assist, 8 rebound performance where he shot 6 of 12 from 3, 17 of 37 from the field. Just crazy. Only 3 free throw attempts as well. Luka Doncic in the captain spot is projected for 24% captain spot ownership on DraftKings, 53% MVP percent ownership on FanDuel. It's so tough to get away from Luka Doncic today, given that he is the only guy on this team that does things.
Yeah. He's the unquestioned number 1 play today. And if you don't think that he is, you're playing this game wrong. If this game is even mildly competitive, it almost has to be because Luka's playing well. I have him in the optimal lineup on DraftKings 84% of the time. That's exactly where his ownership is. I just prefer to get him more in the captain than the flex in comparison to the ownership. On FanDuel, he's 16K. I have him in the optimal lineup 80% of the time. We have him 91% owned because the chances of him not being one of the 3 biggest raw point scorers, on more or less, he's only not in that spot if he gets hurt. So whatever percentage you think it is that Luka can't play 38 plus minutes today is the only percentage that you shouldn't have him in a lineup.
There's just no 2 ways around it. If you're not getting to Luka, you're making a mistake. Unless you always see people like, oh, he might get hurt. Like you said, right? He might get hurt. Yeah. Maybe he'll catch a flagrant 2.
Right.
Well, yeah. If that's your angle, then all right. But the funny thing is, even so, who the hell are you going to replace him with?
So that's the interesting question. Let's just say for a second right now that everything that I calculate is accurate from a probability standpoint. Let's just go with that assumption for right now. Ahead. That means that 20% of the time, let's say we had a single game slate, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 1 out of those 5, Luka Doncic is not in the optimal lineup on FanDuel. What sort of path do you have to concoct in your head to put that sort of lineup together? Because it happens. And 1 out of those 5 times, if you just have a day where you don't have Luka, you are in a very, very good spot in terms of taking down that GPP. But it doesn't feel like that because 4 other days, you get completely wrecked by not having him. Right. So the question is, if Luka Doncic isn't a good enough scorer to be in the optimal, and we're going to have to assume that it's either he gets ejected early, he gets injured early. It's going to be hard for him to do it if he plays the entire game. Who gets the immediate benefit? Because you assume that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are still going to be up there in raw points. Does it have to be become a lineup with it's Porzingis, Tim Hardaway? One of those 2 guys is probably the Dallas representative, right?
Yeah, but you know what else happens? The Clippers absolutely shit on them. Like the
Sure.
Is that a certainty? No. Is it a likelihood? Yes. Without Luka Doncic, you're like Kristaps Porzingis has been very bad. Would we obviously, if Luka was out, let's just say he was out for the game before it started, would we be going to Luka or Porzingis everywhere? Of course we would. Would we be going to Tim Hardaway everywhere? Of course we would. Understandable, right? But that's where you have to go. You have to go to the guys that are going to soak up that massive usage, a strong rebounding rate, and a team leading assist rate by 100 miles. So, yeah, that's what you do. But I still, it's like there's still just not. You're, like you said, what'd you say? 1 in 5, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 1 in 5. I have him at 79.9% of being in an optimal lineup today.
So 20% is still pretty high, but for a 1-game slate too. But I'll take my chances because I wonder like how much of that, if it was a certainty that Luka couldn't get hurt or ejected, what do you think that number would be at? Think about that.
So here's the thing. If we're being technical, it's what my numbers are. Because there's no randomness in my minutes projections. The variance comes in his individual rates.
Right. So it's still pulling, say, 40 minutes every game.
Yeah, he's playing 40 times whatever that new rate becomes, which is basically just him being bad. That's not necessarily how it works, but it works for this exercise. But I mean, look, if he doesn't get hurt or get tossed, it feels almost impossible that he's not up there. But the problem is his salary. You can't really roster him in the utility spot and expect him to be the 5th highest scorer in the rest of this lineup works. Like that's going to be a really tough build that does not happen all that often. And that's where you get into issues because the fact that he's $1,000 more expensive than Kawhi Leonard and $2,000 more expensive than Paul George.
Right.
Fading Luka is like the Shanzan version of stacking in MLB.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. And you're right. Like if all of these guys were $5,000, Luka's optimal lineup percentage is almost 100.
Yeah.
Right.
It is 100. It's 100.
Yeah.
It would, if Luka Doncic were
the same price as everyone, like NFL preseason salaries, 5,500 across the board.
100% optimal lineup. Barring injury, foul trouble, whatever. Like if you just have to project these guys at those rates, he's always going to show up as one of the 5 highest scores.
All right. Mr. Nice Guy did super chat us earlier. I missed it. He said, props to Austin Rivers, who played 40 minutes and only had 7 fantasy points. Shake my head. Is that right? Did he only have 7 fantasy points in 40 minutes?
Yeah, it did not go well at all. And it was a problem.
He hit a clutch 3 late in the game, but that was it.
He did 3 of 6 from the field. Campazzo was playing pretty well in 23 minutes, but he had 5 fouls.
Yes,
which I was happy about because I didn't have Campazzo and I had a shit ton of Rivers.
He had those 2. He had the 4th and 5th early in the second half, which was good for me because I had Monte Morris everywhere. So did most people.
Same.
But, and Ryan Christek, welcome to Team Awesemo, brother. Nice to see that pop up. The more avatars, the better. You know what I mean? Or the more badges, the better. And they start to change colors. I still got that bronze. Working my way up. Dude, everyone, look at half these people are ahead of me. Bullshit. Hit that join below if you haven't, and at least get us to 100 likes. I know this is a showdown slate. I get it. So maybe even 100 on a spot like this is a lofty goal, but I think we can get there. Josh, talk to me about we talked about Boban a little bit. Wrap it up with the rest of Dallas here. I mean, it's tough to talk about these showdown slates without touching on kind of everybody, but in the playoff, showdown slates get even tougher because you don't even have good bench options.
So I'm going back to Porzingis. It's not going to feel good. I think he's going a little bit under-owned across both sites, particularly in the flex spot on DraftKings. But more importantly, on FanDuel, I'm just incredibly confused by this. I have him twice as optimal as we have him for ownership. We have him at 30% aggregate. I have him at 50 total. In particular, our ownership has him 7% of the time in the pro spot. That would be the 3rd highest scorer. Take a guess where I have him. We have him at 7. You're muted.
Oh, I shouldn't have. Oh, you know what I did? I had the stress ball and it bounced off the Rubik's Cube and onto the keyboard.
I got a fidget spinner.
Oh, I got one of them too somewhere. I don't know where it went, but I got one too. I always need to be doing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not. I can't be cranking it.
No, I can't pump off. I save that for the deeper dive. But this thing right here, this is good good entertainment, Josh.
I save it for the tip-off show.
Ha
By the way, 7% ownership on Porzingis. Just the tip in.
You have him higher or lower than that?
Higher than 7% at the pro spot.
You have him at 22%.
That would be light. 34% chance of being in the pro spot. That would be the third highest scorer for the slate. Would it be that all that surprising if he is? Look, who else is it going to be? He's the fourth highest projected guy on the slate by any projection system you're going to find. You're not putting him ahead of Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, or Luka Doncic, but who the hell are you going to project him ahead? Like who are you taking out of the rest of that that's going to go ahead of him? The answer is nobody, and it's not close.
I know he's just been shit. I mean, he's been bad. He's been really bad in this series, Josh. And maybe I'm overreacting, understandable, and things change. And like Covington comes and has a big game. And a lot of these players that have played poorly come and they have a big game when nobody wants to target them. I understand all of that. So this is not me saying don't go to Porzingis today. All I'm saying is something's going to need to change pretty dramatically because this guy has been a complete afterthought in an offense that he should be the clear number 2 option.
Yeah, I think that he has the highest likelihood of being the optimal pro on FanDuel of the entire slate. I don't think anybody has a higher likelihood individually.
And that's because you can't go Luka, Kawhi, and Paul George.
Well, you can. I mean, maybe you can. Actually, that's 45,000. I mean, you're going to have. Actually, maybe you can't.
Well, if he's your highest in the pro, then how is one of Kawhi or Paul George not there? Because Luka's got to be the highest for MVP, and then Star's got to be right. So it has to be one of those 3.
Yeah. So
unless of course you can't fit all of them in the same lineup.
Right. So Luka, Kawhi, and Paul George make up 97% of optimal MVPs in my data. That to me makes perfect sense. It's going to be very hard for one of those guys to not be the highest scorer. At the star spot, they make up 85%. But you're spending 16, 15, and 14 on those guys. Kristaps Porzingis just 12.5. So Kristaps Porzingis, Paul George, Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway, and Paul George are the most likely options in the pro spot. And that's where I think that you could pick up the most value. I think that he is getting massively underrepresented there. I would almost advocate for putting Kristaps Porzingis solely in the pro spot and building every other lineup around that. The problem lies in the fact that he's been a 0.78 FanDuel point per minute guy in the postseason.
That's horrible.
Real terrible.
Horrible.
Yeah.
What about Hardaway then? Like, is Hardaway?
He's the next guy up.
Like Hardaway is he's kind of a low floor guy, but at least he's proven that he has a ceiling in this series. And
he would be my look. I think that he is also underrepresented in that pro spot. We have him projected for 10% ownership there. I have him projected for 19 in that spot. I would like to get to a lot more Tim Hardaway as the third highest scorer for the slate as well. There aren't a lot of options though.
No, there aren't a lot of options at all. And when you look at this Dallas Mavericks team, usage rate in this series, we have 5 games, 44% Luka, 44% usage rate. You heard that correctly. He has a 44% usage rate in this series. Then Boban is second at 28. Mm-hmm. Then anyone getting any legitimate minutes, Jalen Brunson has only played 90 minutes, but he's 21. Hardaway at 20. Porzingis at 18. So the point I'm getting at here is in the starting lineup, I'm not including Boban because he only started 1 game. The Luka has a usage rate that is more than 100% higher than the next closest player.
Yeah.
Like
he's literally everything.
He's everything. Assist rate, 48.5%. The next closest starter, take a guess what the assist rate of the next closest starter is.
20.
7. Tim Hardaway, 7%. Porzingis, 4%. Finney Smith, 6%. Maxi's 8, so you can give him the 8, but still, that's nuts. Absolutely preposterous. And then one more. Rebound rate, 12.5%. Luka. Porzingis is at 8%. Hardaway's at 6. If you're not playing Luka today, you're absolutely nuts. Just truly insane. But that is an indictment on the rest of this team as well.
If you want to print money tonight on FanDuel, grow a set and take Luka clean out of your player pool.
Replace him with the guys on his team that don't do anything. Granted, I
hope for the 1 out of 5 game tonight.
Right? Anything else for Dallas you want to touch on?
Let me look. I think Josh Richardson's going over owned on DraftKings at 2,600. Let's see. FanDuel, I think Dwight Powell is going pretty significantly over owned at 8K. I think Dorian Finney-Smith at the utility spot on FanDuel is going pretty massively under owned, but Boban to me is the guy going most under owned rather on FanDuel and on DraftKings, barring his start. If he's not in the starting lineup, then yank that shit out of there.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That we got to pay close attention to that. And it's only one game, so it's not like you'll have other players in there at lock and all of that stuff. You guys can check all of our shows out in podcast form. If you haven't done so, leave a rating and a review if you want to leave. If you want, again, Awesemo Plus free week of all of that good stuff. Just leave your email and your Twitter account. But before we go, we always have free content, premium content on the site. And I figured I'd read it off to you today. Adam's Deep Dive, which is fantastic. That'll be released later today, totally free on the homepage. But you have the NBA player rankings, MLB top pitchers tool, phenomenal tool, NHL player rankings, and the MMA top fighters tool. If you want to see everything else, we have all the tools built and used by the #1 ranked DFS player, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, ownership, player projections, top stack tool, boom bust tool, the lineup builder, the fantasy cruncher add-on. Of course, that's not built by Alex, but it's the add-on. It's the best optimizer out there that you're going to find. All the premium articles, the optimal lineup percentages, all of that stuff that'll take your game and understanding of DFS to the next level, including Slack chat where we have office hours where people will help answer your questions. I'm talking the pros, Steve Buzzard, Alex jumps in there, Ben, Josh, you jump in there. A lot of people jump in there and answer questions. So it's not just like you jump in head first to these tools and don't know what you're doing. We'll help you with that. And we have tutorials that we've made, videos and articles to help you better understand the tools. Because without that understanding, you're going to waste all of the potential that you're looking at and trying to use these tools the wrong way. But check it out, whether you want to do weekly, monthly, annual, one sport, all of these sports, doesn't matter. We got something for everyone. Awesemo.com/join. Josh, anything else before we close this one out?
Yeah, the most important question we have to ask today. Who wins?
Okay. By the way, Jim Parrish, thank you for the super chat. And Jim Parrish, again, thank you for the super chat. I missed that one earlier. Appreciate you, man. I always try. What's
up with the head-banded butt plug spinning around?
I don't know. That is interesting. All right, chat. Before we go, who wins? Who wins this game? One answer, one name. Who wins this game? Pride yourself on being right tonight. Clippers win this game, Josh.
So are you taking Clippers for the series?
I still am. I still don't think the way that the Dallas Mavericks offense functions with Luka Doncic, as good as he is, I still don't think it's sustainable. And I have to stick with my guns here. Stick to my guns.
What I want to happen more than anything is for Dallas to lose today and take out the Clippers in Game 7 in Los Angeles. I think that will be an incredibly satisfying experience to watch. However,
have all road teams won so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Looking at chat, Clippers, Clips. If I've known anything in my life, it is that I would never back the majority of whatever in the world our YouTube chat is doing. Bring it on, Mavs. We're moving on in Game 6. There's no chance all of these guys are right. Come on now. You got to be kidding me. No chance. Go Mavs.
It's not just YouTube chat, though. It's the public in general. Fading the public is something that So I think sometimes people really overanalyze, right?
Yeah.
And like overcorrect in a huge way, but it also can be valuable. But my head tells me like this is, dude, I think I'm being logical here. The Clippers are a better team, and I can't get past the point that they can't figure it out, right? Like they can't figure it out, but you agree with me on paper, they are the better team.
Yeah.
Like not even close.
Unquestionably.
Especially with how Porzingis has played. Right?
Yeah. Their second best player is playing like he should be on the bench.
Yeah. Did you see the tweet? Someone said, send Porzingis to Turkey in an Enes Kanter jersey.
Man, he'd be dead quick.
Oh, but anyway, I still got to go Clippers. I'm with you most of chat. I'm with you today, no matter what Josh says.
No, I wouldn't trust chat to give me the weather if they were all standing outside looking at the sky.
Not even Michael Campbell?
No, that's the firm one right there.
Not even not my guy, Anthony Marcus?
No, you're making it really easy to go the other direction.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
So if it was hailing on their face and they told you, Josh, there's hail outside right now, you'd say it's probably something else.
I would assume that like their ice maker broke in their house.
I was thinking of a better example. Anyway. All right. Well, there's a fun way to end the show. We got to 100 likes too, which is nice. You know, you're never going to have to say viewership on a single game showdown slate, but we somehow managed to drag this one out. I wouldn't even call it dragging it out. This is fun. This is good.
I mean, it much like yesterday, we didn't get started till 20 minutes after the hour anyway. So 40 minutes for the show proper. That went well.
If Street Preacher told you that it was hailing out, you would buy it, right?
Oh my God. There is not a thing on the planet I would buy if he was selling it.
We'll see you guys back here. Thanks for watching the Strategy Show presented by No House Advantage. Hey, tell your friends about this too. If you like the show, if you like the product, if you like Awesemo, maybe you even like Josh and myself. Rare occurrence, but once in a while it happens. Let people know. Spread the word. Sharing these shows helps us a ton, probably more than anything else. So appreciate it. We'll see you back here tonight on the Deeper Dive Tip-Off, live before lock. Stick around. MLB Strategy Show, same channel, different stream coming up right now.